perceptions, and champion superior quality, adhering to stringent standards. Together, we forge a future where economic growth and environmental stewardship walk hand in hand. Each action symbolizes our commitment to preserve our planet, empower communities, and pave the way to a sustainable tomorrow. This is the essence of our legacy, a legacy of sustainability driven by a passion to build a better, more responsible world for generations to come. Amidst Malaysia's verdant tropics thrives a mature, enduring industry that touches lives around the world. Over a century ago, a seedling was planted, and from it grew an industry that champions sustainability and drives progress with unwavering dedication and respect for our planet. Today, Malaysia stands proudly as the second largest producer, supplying a third of the globe's demand.
Team is closing the loop, the last mile to sustainable serve local and global consumers' demand. So our focus will be on sustainable practices with a particular emphasis on Malaysia's palm oil industry and its potential to meet global demand responsibly. Through today's session, we will dive into the industry's ambitions, net zero goals, conservation efforts, and its roles in global food security. So without further ado, let's begin with our first session. And to kick-start with our session today, please join me in welcoming Yang Berbahagia Dato' Abdul Hadi bin Omar, the Deputy Secretary General, Strategic Planning and Management of the Ministry of Plantation and Commodities, who will unveil the Malaysia's Palm Oil Net Zero Vision for a Greener Future research paper. So this soft launch marks a pivotal step forward in Malaysia's commitment to sustainable practices in the palm oil sector. So please welcome to the stage, Dato'.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Assalamualaikum and very good morning. Our esteemed moderator and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. It is an honor for me to be here. Please allow me to start by expressing my gratitude to the organizer for hosting the Malaysia Palm Oil Day with the theme of Powering a Just Transition Sustainable Malaysian Palm Oil at COP29. Malaysia is one of the world's top producers of palm oil, an industry that contributes significantly to our economy and provides livelihoods for countless families. However, the shift towards sustainability and climate responsibility is not just a desirable but essential for ensuring that the industry remains viable in carbon-conscious global market. Over the past decade, Malaysia's oil palm industry has made strides in adopting more sustainable practices, with many estates now employing smart agriculture tools. Precision agriculture, for instance, has allowed us to better monitor soil health and manage fertilizer, reducing both waste and emission. In mills, some companies have embraced energy efficient technologies and have started converting waste into bioenergy to power their operations. Despite this advancement, there remains a considerable gap between where we are now and where we need to be to achieve net zero emissions. Several gaps still hinder our progress toward full sustainability. We need to address some key areas, include methane emission, land use practices, technological accessibility and cost, and data integration and monitoring. Technology alone cannot solve these challenges. Strong collaboration between government, private sector, and academia is essential to drive innovation, investment, and policy support for sustainable palm oil. Additionally, the role of research institutions in developing localized solutions is vital. Collaborative research could unlock solutions tailored to the Malaysian context, addressing local challenges in biodiversity, soil types, and climate conditions. To support our industry's goal of achieving net zero emission by 2050, the Malaysia Palm Oil Council (MPOC) and Swinburne University of Technology Sarawak campus have developed this critical study to explore pathway for carbon neutrality within the palm oil sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, while the journey towards net zero in the palm oil industry is complex, it is achievable with strategic technological adoption and collective action. Embracing this shift is not only a responsibility to the environment, but also a pathway to ensure long-term resilience and competitiveness in rapidly evolving global market. By addressing the current gaps and capitalizing on the opportunities before us, Malaysia has the potential to lead the world in producing truly sustainable palm oil. Together, through innovation, commitment, and collaboration, we can drive the industry towards a future that is both prosperous and sustainable. And now, it is my pleasure to share with you the study's finding. I hope It will serve a valuable guide for our industry journey toward net zero emissions and reaffirm the country's dedication to sustainability and carbon neutrality. This will also enable the Malaysian palm oil industry to contribute meaningfully to support Malaysia's commitment to reduce its carbon intensity against GDP of 45% by 2030. Together, let us drive Malaysian palm oil industry towards a greener and more sustainable future. Thank you.
Malaysia, the world's second-largest producer of palm oil, is committed to a sustainable future. To meet ambitious goal of net zero emissions by 2050, the Malaysian Palm Oil Council and Swinburne University of Technology Sarawak campus embarked on a new study to evaluate current practices that help reduce emissions and identify new pathways to decarbonize the industry further. This groundbreaking study dives into the current emissions from oil palm plantations and mills, pinpointing the major contributors, fertilizers, fuel consumption, and palm and biomass degradation. But it doesn't stop there. By implementing advanced technologies like combined heat and power systems and palm anaerobic digestion, emissions have already been cut by nearly 69%. The study highlights emerging technologies which could bring Malaysia's crude palm oil production to net zero, or even negative emissions, under certain scenarios. This is an exciting leap forward. However, the journey to net zero is not without challenges. We must address technology readiness, improve infrastructure, and build local manufacturing capabilities to make this vision a reality. This is where we need the support of industry leaders, policymakers, and researchers. Together, we can turn these findings into action, investing in the innovations that will drive Malaysia's palm oil industry toward a sustainable, net zero future. Join us in redefining the future of Malaysian palm oil, because a sustainable industry benefits us all.
All right, so that is the unveiling of the Malaysia's palm oil net zero vision towards a greener future. So thank you, Yang Berbahagia Dato' Abdul Hadi. So now let's continue with our next sessions, which focus on the driving just transition and circular economy in Malaysia's palm oil industry. So for this session, we are honored to have Professor Jeffrey Sachs, the President of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, who will deliver a keynote speech. Following the keynote, panelists will discuss how Malaysia's palm oil industry is contributing to a just transition and circular economy, promoting inclusive growth and improving livelihoods in local communities. So this session will highlight practical approaches to balancing social impact with sustainability, providing insight into the industry's positive influence on workers, smallholders, and also communities. Joining Professor Sachs are Dr. Norita Azmi from FGV Holdings Berhad, Mr. Muhammad Hasbullah from Malaysia's Sustainable Palm Oil, which will be joining virtually, and also Associate Professor in Senior Dr. Vignesh from Swinburne University of Technology Sarawak, also joining us virtually. And this session will be moderated by Kalyani Innambudi, the ESG and carbon consultant from the UK, the Grantham Research Institute at the London School of Economics. So now I would like to invite all the keynote speakers on the stage. Please welcome Professor Jeffrey Sachs.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. It's always a great pleasure to be with the Malaysian colleagues and to hear about the exciting leadership of Malaysia in the transformation to sustainable development. I am in listening mode this morning to learn about Malaysia's initiatives in palm oil, so I won't speak about palm oil specifically, but I do want to speak about the coming year, which is a major year of events and transformation in which Malaysia will play a very important leadership role. We know that the biggest transformations in the world towards green, sustainable, digital economies are taking place in your region. East Asia, including ASEAN and China and the countries of other countries of Northeast Asia, are the pace setters for the whole world in transformation now. And the industrial and agricultural ecosystems that are being built throughout ASEAN and China and the other countries of the region are the fastest transformations taking place in the world, the largest industrial base for green and digital transformations, and I think the guides and inspiration for the rest of the world. So my first message is keep going and keep going rapidly in this. Now, 2025 will be, in my view, an especially important year because Malaysia will be the president of ASEAN, and it's extremely important for ASEAN to take region-wide initiatives, both in the energy transformation and in the sustainable land use transformation, including the palm oil industry that we're discussing today. So Malaysia's presidency of ASEAN, I think, is a tremendously important opportunity. And I will be doing whatever I can to support your government and to support ASEAN Secretariat and to support the other countries of the region to come up with an integrated strategy for energy transformation and an integrated strategy for protecting the incredible biodiversity of the ASEAN region. When it comes to energy, we know that the region possesses vast potential of renewable energy of multiple kinds: ocean, geothermal, wind, solar, hydro, and others. But they're all in distinct geographies, and they are not necessarily in the places where people live and where the industries are. And so connecting an integrated transmission and distribution system and an integrated ASEAN-wide power pool, I think, is critical for ASEAN's efficient and low-cost energy system of the future. And of course, many countries are pushing for this because they know that they can't secure their energy needs within their domestic boundaries alone. There needs to be a region-wide strategy. That strategy, to my mind, is not yet in place, but there's a lot of work at the ASEAN Secretariat, in the individual countries, in UN SCAP, in the Asian Development Bank, at the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, at the New Development Bank, in many institutions in the region that are thinking about this. But I would like to have ASEAN now come forward with a strategy and a plan during the 2025 presidency of Malaysia. Similarly, an integrated strategy on the regional ecosystems is critical. Protection of the rainforests is obviously a multi-country need, and many places the same ecosystem spreads across national boundaries and cannot be protected on one side or another. Certainly the river systems all cut through many countries and require coordination. The fisheries and the coastlines need shared protection as well. So all of the land use, marine protection, water resources, riversheds also need a tremendous amount of regional cooperation and strategy for development. So this is a second feature that I hope will be at a very highlighted feature of the 2025 presidency of Malaysia in ASEAN. Now, at the same time, a new European Union Commission is coming into office actually in days. It's just being confirmed by the European Parliament within these hours as we meet. And I believe that the EU-ASEAN relations are critical. These are very important markets and very important geopolitical relations as well. So I hope that 2025 is also the occasion in which ASEAN can have its Green Deal, that it can then politically put alongside the European Green Deal in a diplomatic, trade, and finance relationship. I think this is extremely important and very important for palm oil, for example. You're making initiatives on palm oil that are very important. The European Union market is critical. A lot of regulatory activity is underway in Europe that directly concerns the future of Malaysia and the future of the palm oil industry. And Malaysia and ASEAN as a whole needs a diplomatic voice and a negotiating power vis-a-vis Europe. And so, to my mind, having an ASEAN Green Deal that is complementary to the European Green Deal, working together at high-level diplomacy, negotiations, so that there's smooth relations on the two sides, and a common understanding is very important. And again, the timing in 2025 will be very important because of the new EU Commission. Another major development in 2025, of course, is the expansion of the BRICS. The BRICS is, to my mind, an extremely consequential innovation of the international system. It is first a group of major developing countries, but also a major group that says we have a geopolitical voice in the international system. We are not going to be dominated by any one country, including my own, the United States, or anyone else, and we want to have a voice in international standard setting, in international regulation, in the strategies for green transformation, in the application of international finance, in the evolution of the international monetary system, and in other ways. And Malaysia will become a member of the BRICS, in my view, soon. And I found very interesting at the summit that Russia hosted a couple of weeks ago in Kazan. First, I thought it was an extremely effective summit and very well managed and with a very strong and clear declaration. But there were 36 countries around the table, including Malaysia, including Indonesia, including countries from all other regions of the world. And those 36 countries that were in Kazan represent nearly 60% of the world population. This is really something quite particular. The precise estimate that I came up with was 57% of the world population at the table and 46% of the world GDP. So this is a very important group, a very significant group. Brazil will be holding the presidency of BRICS next year, but I very much hope that ASEAN is there as a regional group in its representation, but certainly Malaysia at the country level should be very well represented. Another major event next year is the Finance for Development Summit, which is held every 10 years by the United Nations to look at the reform of the global financial system. And now the big question for global finance is how to finance a transformation to sustainable energy and land use. This is the #1 question, and how to ensure that that is achieved for all parts of the world, not only for the rich countries, but for all countries. So that Finance for Development Summit is June 30 to July 3 in Madrid. And once again, this is an opportunity for global leadership and global shaping of the kind of system that works for all countries, including Malaysia and including for ASEAN. And the final stop for the year that I want to mention is 1 year from now, COP30. So we're all here at COP29, but in a way, COP29 is a warm-up for COP30. And the reason is that in COP30, countries are really to put forward their decisive breakthrough plans to sustainable energy and land use systems. I would say that the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions up until now, have pointed in the right direction, but have been rather modest and hesitant. We can't afford modesty and hesitancy anymore in what we're doing. After all, we've been here 29 years in a row now. The world has not even peaked in its emissions, much less decisively turned the world down to zero. The consequences of that slow pace of decarbonization and emissions reduction is that we've reached the very end of the period of safety in the climate. We're already reaching 1.5 degrees Celsius, the limit that we said we must never hit. We're hitting it. And the consequences of hitting it are actually extremely dangerous, I'm sorry to say. Every region of the world is already experiencing major dislocations, whether it's extreme hurricanes and typhoons, droughts, floods, forest fires, extreme storms, new pest outbreaks, intensification of dengue. Whatever it is, we're seeing all over the world dramatic disturbances now. And we're now seeing signs that the scientists have been telling us about for years, that the feedback effects are going to accelerate these changes. One of the shocking articles in the scientific literature that came out last week was about methane, because the scientists have been wondering, where is the rising methane coming from? Is it because of more natural gas production? Is it because of leakages and so forth? And nobody could close the methane budget to understand exactly what was happening. Well, last week there was a study published that is very frightening, because they used a kind of isotopic tracer of the methane to identify the most likely source of this increased methane. And it seems to be coming from wetlands. So it's a natural feedback. It's not from the oil and gas industry per se. It is from a natural feedback. Why is that worrisome? Because we don't control that, but it could lead to runaway change. And what seems to be happening is that in the wetlands, as the temperature rises, the bacterial activity that produces the natural methane is intensified. And that feedback effect is now leading to a feedback on accelerating climate change. So we're right at the stage where many of these feedbacks are occurring right now. The melting of the permafrost, the changing of the ocean circulation, the changes of the methane cycle, and so forth. Extraordinarily dangerous. So the next round of nationally determined contributions needs to be more than an incremental change for the next 10 years. It needs to be a true path to zero. And that means a different kind of work for our governments in the coming year, a different kind of planning, and a different scale of ambition. Now, since Brazil will host COP30 in the Amazon, this is also indirectly very good news for Malaysia and for Southeast Asia, because one of Brazil's main points of focus are rainforests. And not only how to protect the rainforests, but how to create a financial structure that gives incentives to communities to protect the rainforest. So Brazil will be launching next year at Belém, at COP30, a tropical agricultural fund for the world. This can be a huge benefit for Malaysia and for ASEAN in general, because it could be a source of low-cost, long-term financing to protect your ecosystems, something that doesn't exist right now, payment for ecosystem services. Brazil's idea is that there should be a partnership of the three great rainforest regions of the world, of the Amazon, the Congo Basin, and the Southeast Asian rainforest regions, in a kind of global partnership for protecting the tropical rainforest regions, but also creating a financial architecture for that protection. So this is some added work, but some added benefit as well in the coming year. And I do hope and expect that a year from now, we're able to see the unveiling of a very major initiative in which Malaysia has played its role, and where we could say that we now have a clear financial underpinning to sustainable rainforest management and protection around the world. I lead for the UN a Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which engages many of Malaysia's leading universities. We're actually based at Sunway University for the Asia part of SDSN. So our headquarters for all of Asia is in KL at Sunway University and with the Jeffrey Chia Foundation. So this is a huge partnership that we have. And we have established a science panel for Southeast Asian rainforests, and we're very eager to work with the palm oil industry and with others to make sure that we understand and can help to promote as effectively as possible the sustainability of the rainforests of Malaysia and Southeast Asia. And we have a comparable science panel for the Congo and a science panel for the Amazon, so we can also bring the scientific information across all three regions for mutual benefit. So this is why I'm extremely excited about the year ahead. I'm delighted that I will have several opportunities, my wife and I will have several opportunities to be in KL in the coming year because of all of these important events, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, for the inspiring speech. So now I would like to call Yang Berbahagia Dato' Abdul Hadi to present the token of appreciation to Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Please welcome Prof. onto the stage. Thank you. Oh, okay, one more photo. One more photo. Can we have the other speakers also as well onto the stage? Big smile. And then videos. All right. Thank you. Okay. Now, we would like to continue with our next agenda, which is our knowledge sharing and also the panel discussions. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Norita Azmi as well as Ms. Kalyani on the stage to walk through the discussion with having Mr. Muhammad Hasbullah and also Professor Insigne Dr. Vignesh joining virtually. All right. Can you test again?
Oh, yeah, I think it's. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying their COP29 journey so far. And it was an amazing speech from the Professor Sachs. So we have a very interesting round of discussion, how to drive the transition and circular economy in Malaysia's palm oil industry, a pathway to climate resilience and social equity. So this panel will examine Malaysia's palm oil industry's role in driving global climate solutions through just transition and circular economy initiatives. Our panelists, we have one here and a couple of them are joining live. We'll actually discuss the industry's transformation approaches to job creation in sustainable farming and bioenergy, circular economy advancements, and empowerment of marginalized communities. This session will also provide a holistic view of the sector's contribution to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic growth. Can you please welcome my esteemed panelists onto the discussion? Thank you. Can I please request my panelists to quickly introduce themselves? Thank you.
Thank you, Puan Moderator. Yang berbahagia Datuk, my esteemed panelists, delegates, and tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. I am Norita Azmi. I am the head of Sustainability Regulation with FGV. That's about it, I suppose.
To introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hello.
Asbullah, you want to go ahead first?
All right, sure. Hi. Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon from Malaysia. And first and foremost, we would like to send our apologies because we are unable to make it physically there in Baku. But thank you for having me. My name is Muhammad Hasbullah bin Suparyono from Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil, the head of industry planning and development. So previously I worked with in the plantation sector, started, and then I joined financial institutions, Bursa Malaysia Berhad, and then I rejoined Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil with bigger, of course, with bigger agenda and support the national interest and also national agenda on sustainability. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Thanks to Norita, Vignesh, and Mohammed Hasbullah. To start off with Norita, my questions to you, firstly. So given your experience in the legal frameworks and sustainability standards, what regulatory or legal challenges has FGV encountered in advancing just transition within the industry? And how have these been addressed to ensure steady and continuous progress? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. When we talk about advancing just transition, we are looking at a change of economy from high carbon economy to low carbon economy. Apart from innovation and technology, there's another part that we have to be strictly complied with, which is on the law, regulation, standards, and policy. For FGV, we really take that seriously. I mean, for my department, we have a very concise, precise legal register, where as of today, we have 130 regulation and laws, which are being used by all our operations, the estate and the mills to be complied with, and that they have to adhere with. Yeah, but in Malaysia, to name a few, we have a few acts whereby it is to regulate the operations of our companies. For example, we have the solid Solid Waste, Environmental Quality Act, Electricity Supply Act. So if these laws and regulations are be complied with, the transition for just transition will be much easier. Unfortunately, for FGV experience, although the laws are there, the regulations are there, which I believe it is already enough, but the implementation itself is questionable in the sense that I would have to say that, for example, when we do our auditing, we have our department where they have done auditing for example, for the housing areas. Okay? So during the audit, it is surprisingly, although the law is there, the regulation is there, we have then done our awareness, it is still, unfortunately, we still can find that there is trace of open burning. There are connection, self-made connection, electrical, which is unsafe. And then, unfortunately, also, there are the usage of chemical, which are not being regulated. So that is in our operation. So what we are doing now is our awareness program. To counter this, we have to continue in monitoring and to make sure that all are being followed. When everything fails, then the disciplinary action will come in place. Okay, that is one. So that the second that we are on standby is the introduction of the Energy Efficiency Conservation Act, which is coming in force next year. Okay, our problem with this act is only one for the time being. The one that we are looking at is because the mandatory requirement is we must have energy manager. We have at least around 191 estate. We have 66 mil. But for all of this operation, we only have less than 10 energy managers. So for now, what we are doing, we are trying to get our people to be certified as an energy manager so that by the time it has been enforced in 2026, we have enough people to cover our operation. Yeah, thank you.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Ms. Norita. How does the FGV's circular economy initiatives such as repurposing palm oil byproducts into bioenergy, impacting local communities economically and socially, could you actually share any specific significant examples? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. FGV has developed a dynamic and diverse renewable energy projects which play an important role in lowering our carbon emissions. Our waste materials such as our empty fruit bunch, our palm kernel shells are being utilized and be used and be produced as green energy, whereby it through our biomass and biogas. Okay, biomass has been our primary power source. This is due to the remote location of our mills, whereby the transmission grid is unreachable. Now, from renewable energy to operate our operation, we also support the community around our plant. Okay, so what we are doing now, we are providing employment. All right, but it doesn't stop there. What we do is we also provide reskilling and of training in various roles such as boiler, engineer, chargeman, safety officers, and also plant managers. So at the moment, there are over 100 individuals which has been employed in this area, which positively impacting their livelihood. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So my next point will be, in your opinion, what are some of the most effective ways to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability, particularly for the small holders which are involved in this MPOC industry?
Okay. FGV has to date, we have 1,100 smallholders who supply fresh fruit buns to our mills. Now, to balance this economic growth with environmental sustainability, we look at two links. First and foremost will be responsible production. This is where we need to know that the supplier practice good agricultural practices. Now, we are committed to NDPE. Due to that, this commitment started since 2016. By extension, it also extends to our supply chain in 2019. All right, now, to strengthen this, we also have our policy whereby all our supply chain have to comply with. That is our supplier code of conduct. All right. So the second one is responsible sourcing. We need to know where we buy from. Okay, so literally we are talking about traceability. Traceability here means that we need to know from whom.
Value chain, supply value chain.
Yes, from whom, where, okay, and then whether they have the legal license to supply their product to us. Okay, by knowing them, we can trace their product, that to make sure that we do purchase the product sustainably. We have various certification whereby the supply chain has to follow. Before, there was only RSPO, but the last few years, we also have other certification. For Malaysian, we have the Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil, MSPO. So this gives more opportunities to our stakeholders, our independent smallholders, to be included as long as they comply with the certificate. Now, this is where we come in and support them. What we do is, everybody knows that the EUDR is coming in next year. So the enforcement will be starting in December 2025. It was supposed to be this year. Thank God, the extent is for another 1 year, meaning that we have a little bit more time to go about this. So with this EUDR coming in, so our support to smallholders is we can look at, we have to make sure, first and foremost, we have to make sure the legality of their land. The land is theirs, it belongs to them, all right? And then the production of polygon mapping to know where is the land, and thirdly, the due diligence on the human rights perspective, okay? When all the smallholders can adhere to all these, the standards, the policies, all right? So their product, hopefully that we can introduce it to the EU market. So this in a way later on will also give them premium prices. Okay, for the last 1 year, this is November, starting from this year, we have a very continuous program with our smallholders. Literally for every month, we are meeting up with them to make sure that they understand our policies, they understand about the laws and the regulation, they understand how to go about and doing business with us. So we, from 1,100 of them, actively with us, supplying fruits to FGV, we have come in contact with 673 of them. So the program is ongoing. So we have to ensure that by the time the EUDR comes in, all our smallholders will understand the requirement expected out of them in order for them to do business with FGV. Yeah.
So definitely the sustainable and responsible supply chain is a key thing here.
Yes, definitely.
And also education and awareness for the smallholders. Yeah, yes. Definitely. Interesting. Thank you so much. Over to Mr. Vignesh Andyapan. Vignesh, can you kindly introduce yourself to the audience, and I can get into the discussion mode with you after that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Kalyani, for the introduction here. Good afternoon from Malaysia as well to Yang Berbahagia Dato' and also all the fellow audience members in Baku, as well as, I guess, those who are tuning in as well. I'm Dr. Vignesh from Swinburne University of Technology in Sarawak, but you can call me Vic in short. Let's skip the formalities. I'm a researcher in the area of net zero emissions related to energy systems and supply chains, and I work a lot in the area of palm oil value chains, palm oil supply chains as well. And the study in which Yang Berbahagia Dato' just now spoke about in his elegant speech earlier was the study that that we led from the Swinburne University of Technology Sarawak campus. So, and of course, I'm also a chemical engineer by training. So, happy to see all of you. Looking forward to answering questions as well.
Thank you, Vignesh. So to start off with, the net zero outlines Malaysia's approach in climate resilient future in the palm oil sector. And in your view, why is it essential for industries like palm oil to pursue net zero emissions? And how does this align with the global sustainability objectives, or how does it strategically sit with the global sustainability objectives? Thank you.
Well, I think when you examine the question here, I think we have reached the stage where it's no longer about asking, why do we need to reduce emissions? It's more of now we've reached the stage of how do we reduce emissions, isn't it? And I think, but just to dial back a little bit, when it comes to emissions, I think it's very clear the environmental, the health impacts to various communities, various regions as well, and also a lot of different mediums, the ocean, the forest cover, and so on. There's a lot of impact in that sense. So it's very crucial, not only just the palm oil industry, but various industries to look at ways to reduce emission and to essentially improve on efficiency. I think one of my fellow panelists mentioned about the Efficiency Act, and I think this is a very timely moment as well to look into energy efficiency as well. And in the point on where the palm oil industry sits, I think it sits in a very strategic position when it comes to net zero emissions. I can cite from the study that we recently completed. The palm oil industry is in a very good position in terms of reducing its emissions and closing the gap to net zero. It also puts itself in a very good position to be a place to offer opportunities for further reduction for other sectors, especially when you think about the hard to abate sectors like the cement industry, like the steel industry. They're looking for opportunities to decarbonize their sector, but the options that are available certainly could be very costly. And this is where we can look at opportunities such as offsets and so on. And this is where the Bursa Carbon Exchange also came in a very timely moment, because now you see opportunities to look at potential on how the palm oil industry can offer this, can be a industry or a sector that offers these opportunities to other sectors to help them decarbonize even further. Yeah, thank you.
I can't agree more with you, why it is actually too crucial, to have the net zero goals within the MPOC. Going to the next question, Vignesh, your study highlights biomass conversion as a promising avenue for emission reductions. Can you actually share how these technologies such as pyrolysis and gasification can help mitigate GHG emissions while promoting a circular economy, especially within the palm oil industry? Thanks.
All right, thank you for the question. So before I address the question, I think some context is very important. What we've studied for the industry is that there are already very comprehensive practices that already look at reducing emissions. For instance, we talk about generating bioenergy for self-use for the mills, as well as looking at circular economy practices such as developing biofertilizers and things like that. And this is all stemming from the biomass or the byproducts that are coming out from the crude palm oil extraction process. So we have the palm kernel shells, we have the mesocarp fibers, we have the empty fruit branches, to name a few. There's a list of biomass, but these are just some of the prominent ones which a lot of people are familiar with. But we do know that PKS and potentially even mesocarp fiber, these are all already used in to the high level of utilization. What we looked at in the study was more towards the less utilized one, which was the empty fruit bunch. How could we further enhance the practices in the industry? And we looked at possibility of using empty fruit bunches through gasification and through pyrolysis to produce products, green products such as syngas that can be used to generate electricity, as well as for pyrolysis to produce biochar, which could have a lot of various activities and downstream applications. But the ones that we looked into in terms of CO2 equivalent reduction is about putting it back into the plantation and retaining the nutrients as well as the resources that we put into the plantations. And this is where I answer your question. So when you use biochar as an emerging option, putting it back into the plantations can help us store carbon back into the ground as a form of negative emissions. And it also helps restore, or in other words, maybe retain some of the nutrients that would probably be lost if you just use fertilizers only. So this is talking about nutrients not only from fertilizer, also water usage as well. So by improving that efficiency in the soil, we are able to reduce fresh consumption of fertilizer, fresh consumption of water, to name a few. And this itself helps bring up further circular economy and improve the efficiency overall.
That was very insightful. So the net zero emphasizes the role of Malaysian sustainable palm oil certification in reducing emissions. How has the industry's commitment to MSPO-driven best practices improved Malaysian carbon footprint? And what further steps could solidify its position as a leader in sustainable agriculture, which is of a big hot topic right now? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, maybe I can address the question first. Then I think this also falls under the alley of Mr. Hasbullah as well. But I can address the question first. I think from at least from the study that we did, I will answer it from that angle. MSPO practices, or like certification, essentially gets operators to certify their operations and more document or report their best practices. And more importantly, reporting is an essential part of this whole picture here. In some of my previous engagements when it comes to emission reduction, one key thing that always sticks to my mind is, if you can't measure what you're emitting, how do you manage it? So this is very important. That's why reporting the emissions and also looking at the certification, I think that's where MSPO certification is a very critical component here. Because not only we determine the baseline of a particular operation, we are able to look at that baseline and look at what are the additional steps that we can do. And going on what further steps that we can do to reduce or minimize the gap to net zero is what we've highlighted in our study. We can look at these new emerging areas because we are very familiar with the palm oil industry's practices. There's a lot of circular economy practices, and there's a lot of bioenergy and biomass utilization practices ongoing. But the industry is very shy, I would say. The industry doesn't like to document this, and now it's a good time for us to document this. And this is where we believe that our study is a very important study to put that into position. We are now documenting what the current practice is, how it helps to reduce those emissions, and now we're highlighting what can we do next. And this is where we mentioned earlier about gasification, we mentioned earlier about fermentation, basically utilizing the unused or poorly utilized biomass that is still lingering around. And I think that's where the target should be at this point. Yeah, that's my thought on this.
Vignesh, so lastly, smallholders make up the significant portion of Malaysia's palm oil sector. So how does the study propose supporting smallholders in adopting carbon reduction methodologies like technologies? And what role does inclusive innovation play in achieving net zero without compromising economic stability? Thank you.
All right, so at least from what we've looked at this subject matter from a top-down point of view. And one of the ideas of doing this work essentially is to identify opportunities that we can look at further. And one of the things that we identified was the exact thing that you've mentioned in your question. Because the industry also has a lot of smallholders, medium smallholders, different scales. And how do we do this in a just transition? And one of the things that we've highlighted in the work is looking at financial support for these smallholders. Because these are potentially new technologies that need to be taken up by the smallholders. And we do understand that the budget and probably their margins, economic margins, can be a bit limited. And to convince them at the end of the day, we also have to not only look at the emissions language, we also have to communicate from the economics as well and put those two things together. And that is why now we talk about indicators like how much of CO2 you can remove for how much you put in to abatement. And in this is the kind of context that we need to look at. And financial support is something that we've identified as an area of opportunity. But what I would like to admit is that this is an area that we need to study further, because what we know is that this is a gap that needs to be closed, but the specifics behind it could be another study or could be something that we have to evaluate further on how we can roll this out. Some ideas I can think of is knowledge transfer programs, or technology transfer programs or initiatives where smallholders can come in to learn better about these technologies and why it's important to them and how this relates to their operations. But of course, at the end of the day, it goes down to the dollar and cent and how this relates to mitigation and emission reductions and how we can connect these two together for the smallholders and to convince them as well. Yeah, so thank you.
Collaboration approach is critical to achieve all this, isn't it, Vignesh? That's the key point, yeah? Okay, thank you so much, very insightful. Mohammed Hasbullah, over to you. Can you kindly elaborate on how the MSPO certification standards encourage and embed into the circular economy practices within this industry, and what the specific measures are being taken to promote systemic changes across the sector? Systemic, but maybe consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Dr. Vignesh, also speaking about the importance of smallholders inclusion. So I think I just want to set the context with regard to Malaysian palm oil. If I think everyone can see that last year alone, our palm oil export last year is more than 100 billion ringgit. And according to the research by the Market Future Insight, as well as the Food Agriculture Organization outlook for the projected by 2030, we will have about USD 1.64 billion market value of sustainable palm oil. So this is where I think certification and sustainability play its parts in ensuring that to echo the first speaker just now, that responsible sourcing is fully and effectively implemented. So talking about systemic change is actually not easy. It's very difficult, because when we talk about developing a ecosystem like the MSPO ecosystem in Malaysia, it's actually taking into consideration a various or multiple stakeholders that we are actually developing the system itself. For instance, we need to have a very strong support from the government, from the policymaker, and then we need to ensure that there is a political will and consistent policy. As you all know, I think we have quite a frequent changes of government in Malaysia previously, but having a very strong political will for the benefit of the Malaysian palm oil industry is crucial, so that we can slowly and we can maintain the consistency of the implementing those policies, especially on MSPO certification scheme. And secondly, I think we're talking about systemic change. We need to have a very robust industry-led initiatives and support, and which is also inclusive, where we need to make sure the inclusion of smallholders, or particularly independent smallholders. As you all know, smallholders represents nearly 30% of Malaysian palm oil planted area in Malaysia, and half of that is from the 30% is owned by the independent smallholders. So to have a very robust and inclusive MSPO ecosystem, we need to make sure that they are also be part of the sustainability agenda. And secondly, and thirdly, or finally, my third point on systemic change, of course, in order to implement policy to be materialized, we need to have the normal carrot and stick approach, where at the moment or before we go into the mandatory certification, we provide an incentive for the industry to come on board. And I think from 2015 to 2021, based on our data of incentive, the government of Malaysia already invested nearly 100 million ringgit to ensure that the palm oil industry can come on board and get audited and earn their certificate. And I think there is benefit for the benefit of the participants or the audience here, that we're still giving supporting the incentive for independent smallholders until today for adoption of MSPO certification. So systemic change require all these, I would say, 3 indicators. And of course, during the standard development process, we also cover the elements of social, environmental, and economic as well as governance indicators. So by having this core component in our standard development, the technical committee consists of multi-stakeholders representative from the government, from the industry, from the NGO, social, environmental, civil society, local and international, that actually come up with one specific requirement or component under the MSPO standards, under the principle 5, criterion 2, talking about efficiency of energy use and use of renewable energy, and criterion 3, waste management and disposal. So I believe this is actually aligned with whatever circular economy definition that we have currently. And of course, MSPO being a sustainability certification, we need to balance between the requirement and the measures of social aspect, environmental, and also governance and economy. So I think enough for now, moderator. Over to you.
And it was very useful, actually. But it also resonates to Dr. Norita and Vignesh, this collaborative approach, inclusive approach. So it's pretty much, I think, consistent with all the views here. But my next question is, what challenges has MPO faced in aligning with global sustainability frameworks, and how MSPO is adapting to ensure the standards remaining effective and relevant? As Norita already talked about challenges, do you want to add overlay with the additional challenges, Hasbullah? Thank you.
Yes, of course. I think people need to know this. What we are trying to explain now from MSPO perspective is on the national level, and how we are actually developing this and addressing those issues. So when we talk about the when we talk about the international framework, I think people now also got confused whether sustainability system is another matter, and also a regulatory framework or regulatory requirement is another matter. So the question now for us is not about which is which, whether now the regulatory requirement taking control, for instance, like the EUDR or maybe EU forest, UK forest risk commodities. Doesn't matter whether it's a regulatory requirement, or maybe it's a business requirement, or maybe it's a sustainability system requirement. So this is, I think, the biggest challenge for MSPO, to make our scheme credible and at the same time implementable and maybe economically viable. We need to balance this. It's not an easy task, because people can have a very high aspiration of having a very credible and quality scheme, but it comes with a cost, as mentioned by the previous speakers. But for us, the challenge is how to make the scheme credible with strong quality, but at the same time implementable and also maybe economically viable. So based on our internal assessment, when we address this issue, looking into this issue, we need to ensure first, is there any available internationally recognized framework in the market, especially for MSPO to come and maybe to do their own due diligence and assessment. And then secondly, how the current system that we have, based on our gap assessment that we have done, can support the industry or facilitate the industry in compliance to the regulatory requirement. So the game plan now is not like before. What we need to do now is to be more proactive, and we need to get the support of course, the policymaker. We need to get the support of the industry players, and of course, we need to make sure that in whatever we develop, it's a jointly developed. It's not a MSPO own interest or aspiration, but the industry and also maybe the government and also the business and trade aspiration. So that's the biggest challenge for us. And just to share with you that we are now moving towards assessing our certification scheme to the ISIL Alliance, as what we have with our timber sister agency, Timber Scheme, where they are now under the PFC, the one of the umbrella body under forest certification. But also with us, we are now looking into ISIL Alliance. So this is one of our key initiatives for 2025.
Thank you. So lastly, could you actually elaborate on how MSPO certification standards support smallholders in navigating the just transition and access sustainable growth opportunities? But then also, all the three of you can also mention how you're integrating them into the society, maybe after Hasbullah's response. Thank you.
Sure. So we already enroll or we already deploy existing practice or system under MSPO. Of course, it's not purely under the organization MSPO, but for the purpose of MSPO certification scheme, we work closely with our sister agency, for example, like Malaysian Palm Oil Board. So under the current system, as I mentioned earlier, MSPO is inclusive. So it should be able to support the quantum leap move of or transition for smallholders to also come on board in sustainability. So how we do this? Of course, we have a very technical discussion we can provide. You know, I don't think we have enough time to go detail, but in a way, I can summarize that as a scheme owner, we provide and develop the system for the industry to comply. So smallholders is what is the industry. They're also part of the industry. They are different component of the industry, but they are the part of the industry. So in order to comply, of course, MPOB has, Malaysian Palm Oil Board has a very good dedicated team to group them under the Sustainable Palm Oil Cluster. So under this Sustainable Palm Oil Cluster, we have now around, I think, 162 cluster. MPOB will support them in terms of capacity building, providing them with the, for example, like the personal protective equipment, chemical storage, and then they will group them, they will train them, they will bring them from 2013 version standard to 2032 version standard. And then once they are ready, they will call the certification body, the accredited certification body, to come and audit. So all of it fully supported by the TUNAS officer under Malaysian Palm Oil Board. And this is one of the, I think, one of the good elements or unique proposition that we have in Malaysia as compared to other countries. Of course, we do understand the other countries' uniqueness and maybe challenges, but the advantage that we have, we need to leverage. And then this is, I think, one of the good model that other countries try to emulate. For instance, when we had one of the session with under the Fact Dialogue UK, where we try to explain how traceability, transparency, and in smallholders inclusion being taken care and being implemented in Malaysia. So I believe, as I mentioned earlier, I believe the political will, the support, support system, not only MPOB, but we also have the NGO who are working very closely and very intensively to support the inclusion of smallholders as well as the new category under MSPO, which is the FFB dealers. So I think for this, at this juncture, the acknowledgement of the Malaysian initiative in making the sustainability inclusive should be, I think, should be proud by everyone. Yep. Over to you, moderator.
Yeah, that was good. In one sentence, or maybe in 3 words, can you just share what were your key takeaways before I open the floor to the audience? Thank you. Each of you, just 3 words. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can go first. I think if it's going to be limited to 3 words, I can say, I think communication is key. I think this is where it's very important. Yeah, because we can embark on these initiatives, but at the end of the day, this must be clearly communicated to various levels and various stakeholders, because this is a very big area. It's a very important area, and buy-in is extremely crucial. So communication is key. That's what I'd like to leave the panel with.
Hasbullah, in 3 words, thanks.
In 3 words, of course, partnership, collaboration, and effectiveness. I think these 3, we can have all those support system ready, but with these 3, without these 3, we cannot make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Notya?
Okay, I will share the mantra of FGB: sustainability first, profit will come later.
Open the floor to the questions to the audience. My key takeaways are basically driving a just transition, implementing a circular economy in Malaysian palm oil industry is essential for balancing growth with social inclusivity and environmental sustainability. By adopting these approaches, Malaysia can position its palm oil industry as a global leader in responsible production, ensuring long-term resilience and maintaining its market competitiveness in an increasingly sustainability conscious world. I think that's my key takeaway. And any questions from audience? Thank you. Yeah.
Hi everyone. I'm Nur Hasni from Department of Environment Malaysia. So I believe this topic is very close to us, and on the supporting to the agenda of climate change, I think from the panelists, they already embarked the journey as of the compliance to regulation. This is a must, which I think I could foresee for the Malaysia platform and directions. The stipulations or promulgations of regulation has pushed the whole of the sector and plantation in adopting all of agenda, either from the perspective of mitigations of adaptations. So we are in the first place looking from the perspective of circular economy as well, where I think there was an issue raised up by Dr. Norita related to your empty fruit bunches, or the sludges and or the slashes of the oil palms plantations, and all had been taken care, I believe, and this is in line with the requirements of the law. So we are in the middle of some kinds of monitoring them and ensuring that the sustainability of all the operations of palm oil industry in Malaysia is good, either from the plantations up to the operations of industry and up to the productions of manufacturing related to the palm oil substances. So I think we have to ensure that we're very blessed that the whole of the supply chain from very up to the down process has been looking well by the authorities and the networking. And I would agree with Hasbullah when saying that the partnership, collaborations and networking is very important. Thank you.
Can I please request a big applause for all my esteemed panelists? Thank you. Thank you once again, and over to MC.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you so much to our speakers and also moderator. Can we have all the speakers to a quick group photo with yang berbahagia Datuk? On the stage first. Okay, Datuk, yes. Okay. Okay, big smile. And now can we have the group photo with the audience as well? Okay, video. Please wave to the camera. All right, nice. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this first session. And then we can meet you guys at the second session at 11 a.m.